tonight we are really happy that Arifin Graham is going to share some photography that he was auspiciously able to catch prior to the Lahaina fires, and just talk about his trajectory as a photographer, his relationship to Maui, relationship to the subjects. Tonight we have a few subjects that will be joining us both in person and one Zoom. Someone who's moved away will be joining us, who was featured in his photography from his booklet called The Last Resort. I'm going to let Arifin do a presentation. He'll do some interviews. He'll ask for questions from the audience. If you have a question, please raise your hand so I can run this microphone to you so that the broadcast can hear your question. And without further ado, Arifin Graham.
Thank you very much, Kat. Much appreciated. And where I come from, where my wife Willie and I come from in Canada, we have something called a territorial acknowledgement. And we live up there in the land of the Lekwungen-speaking people. And so as we begin tonight, I acknowledge that we are on the traditional Aina, I guess, of the Hawaiian people. So good to see everybody here tonight, and thanks so much for coming. First of all, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself and my own life journey, and how on earth did this guy who was born in a little cottage in England in 1956 end up here in Lahaina. I mean, one of the things I love about the Hawaiian flag, of course, it's got the British flag on it. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or not, but it's still there. So it's this nice little, but so I was born in a cottage in England, and then very quickly at the age of 6 months taken to the wild rolling hills of Alberta in Canada, where I grew up. And one of the things that we used to do, I guess when I was probably 4, 5, 6 years old, is that I got taken by my parents to Waikiki, kind of 1960, 61, 62, and Waikiki was these, little 2-story hotels, and we stayed right on the beach at the Halekulani, which I understand is now a, 5-star tower. But I think that's where my relationship with Hawaii began, because to be taken from this cold, forbidding Canadian winter to this land of magic and warm water and warm air and the smell of the flowers and the music, all those things, I think to this young boy made such a difference. And it was this land of enchantment. Oh yes, and so that's not my mom, that's my beloved nanny, Giovanna, who was from Tuscany in Italy. And so that's me and my sister Juliet on the beach at Waikiki. And then through various other adventures in life, I ended up at the San Francisco Art Institute because I had an interest in photography, and in particular black and white photography. And I studied with a guy called Perkle Jones. And Perkle Jones had done some interesting work with another American photographer called Dorothea Lange in the 1950s, where there was a valley in Napa County in California, the Berryessa Valley, which was being flooded for a dam and a reservoir because California was growing, they needed the water, and so this farming community that had been there for over 100 years, and a town that was there, they were evicted. So Dorothea Lange was commissioned by Life magazine to document the last year of this town and this community. In the end, and so she asked Perkle Jones, who was my professor in San Francisco in the 70s, so this is 1956, and I studied with him 20 years later. She asked him to join her in that work, and they did that work. And they documented, this really sad story, really, of this community disappearing. In the end, Life magazine didn't want the work. I think it was because it was just, in the progress of the 1950s, I don't think people really wanted to see the downside of progress and the loss of community. And so I think when I started taking photographs of Lahaina a couple of years ago, in 2022, I didn't know, of course, that Lahaina would disappear. They knew, and so they did that work. And I sort of somehow, in a moment of epiphany, stumbled upon starting to take black and white photographs of Lahaina, and also around Maui. And I always knew that it was immediately, I knew it would be called The Last Resort. But I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. And so this show was actually on in Atlanta this year, at a museum near Atlanta, and I went to see it. And partly because of my connection with Lahaina and Maui and the disappearance of a place that I started to document, there's, I think, a bit of a mirror here in terms of my instructor who had influenced me deeply when I was there. And so I ended up having a show in Victoria this year, and that's what the little booklet, it's a booklet so far, maybe one day it'll be a book, who knows. But I started taking photographs of Lahaina, and also I'll sort of lead you through that journey and show you some examples of what I've done. And just to say thank you all for coming tonight. I'm looking at you here in the half light, and I really appreciate your presence, so thank you. And back to my parents. So the connection with Maui came when my parents bought a place at Puamana at Lahaina in 1989. And they were here for 25 years, and Wiluia and I got to come and visit them. And that's how we got to know Lahaina and Maui and really find a deep love for the place. And, you know, I am not of this place, however, I love this place. And I think, and my parents did too, and we've both come to love it so much. And I think that's really what motivates me in doing this photographic work that I continue to do here. And the day that I started taking the photographs happened to be the day that we spread my mom's and friend David Taylor's, Allison, David Taylor's ashes with the Kihei Canoe Club. And this was the morning of that day, and when the Kihei Canoe Club did this beautiful ceremony for us. And then later that afternoon, I was at Mala Wharf Road in Lahaina, and I took 3 photographs. I took this one of this woman who was there, and I asked her, you know, I had a chat, and I asked her if I could take her photograph, and she said, sure. And then this one of a guy in a shower. And this one of a couple of guys making their sign for their flea market the next day at the Jodo. And in a moment of epiphany, I just knew that it was going to be black and white, it was going to be about Lahaina and Maui, and it was going to be called The Last Resort. And The Last Resort, for those of you who don't know, is a song by the Eagles on Hotel California, and it's all about finding paradise and how we humans find paradise and mess it up. And Lahaina in that song is the last resort. So we can leave it all behind, sail to Lahaina like the missionaries did so many years ago. They called it paradise. I don't know why you call some place paradise and kiss it goodbye. Alas. Jesus coming soon. So this is I guess the church that they refer to in the song. And so it really was this moment of epiphany where, and I hadn't worked in black and white for over 40 years. And all of a sudden I just knew it had to be black and white. It was about this place, and it was the last resort. So, and this is a place of such great beauty. And this is why people come from around the world to be here. And there's a lot more to it than that. There's, you know, these beautiful, here we are looking towards Kahakuloa on the north side. And then I started just going around Lahaina. And we were here for a couple of weeks. My parents had a place here, and we had to get rid of all their stuff. And so I would be going around town giving it away to the Salvation Army, to the Friends of Lahaina Library, you know, all these places around town. That's what I was doing, and I just started asking people if I could take the photograph. And so here's Joni at the Salvation Army. Oh yeah, this is Dom and Crystal at the Aloha gas station in Lahaina. And this sort of represents to me, there's so many people who have come to live here. Some successful, some otherwise, but everybody sort of finds their place in the mosaic of Lahaina and Maui. And Joni, who I kept taking stuff to the Salvation Army, so I got to know her quite well. Joni, as a result of the fire, has moved away, and she's now in California. And I was able to find her through the Salvation Army here. I had some help there. Here's my dad's old typewriter, which I gave to the Friends of Lahaina Library, and this is Gail, who was volunteering there. Of course, that place in Lahaina is gone. Auntie Kay, who was selling her jams and banana bread by the road down the Lahaina, down the Mala end of town. And I said, I don't have any cash on me, and I started walking towards my car, and I said, well, I'll come back later. And she said, hey, wait, come back. And so she gave me this beautiful loaf of banana bread. It was wonderful. And now Auntie Kay, I ran into her last time I was here this spring. So I've started to take photographs of people who, so Willie and I came back this spring, and I wanted to find the people I had photographed, a couple of years ago. And Auntie Kay, on the last night, Allison and I had gone to the mission church up in Napili, Kapalua, and on the way back from church, there's Auntie Kay selling her jams by the highway. And so I bought a bunch from her, and here she is with her photograph in the book. So I tried to see if she could join us tonight, but I couldn't find her yet, but I probably will at some point. And then the Emma Farden Sharp Hula Festival in Lahaina in August of 2022. And these girls, I saw them under the tree waiting to go on and dance. And I said, hey girls, can I take your photograph? And each and every one of them just showed up. If you look closely there, each and every one of them just showed up as themselves in that moment. It was just such a touching moment. And then we found them this spring with Kumu Uluwehi Guerrero on the left in the red shirt. And there's the two of the girls who were standing in front in the photograph under the banyan tree, holding the photograph. And there we are in the back. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Again, at the same festival. And I call this photograph the Queens of Hula, because I'm just fascinated by people who've been in hula for so many years. And it must just affect your whole life and the whole motion, the whole mood of your life, I would think. And then here, of course, is that last Emma Farden Sharp Hula Festival, for now, under the banyan tree. And then just being around town and that sense of relaxation around Lahaina, just hanging out on a Saturday afternoon. And Oluwalu. This is Riley and Tristan. Our friend Marianne Velez, who has the store there. It's her niece and nephew. And yeah, again, I see this picture, and it's the hope of the youth that we have who are coming up and finding their way in the world. And this is Marianne, who works at the gas station just across the parking lot here. I asked her if she could come tonight, but she's working till 11:30. So, and yesterday I went to see her, and because we came when he came back this spring. So this is taken in 2022, and then we came back this spring, and we gave her one of the books, and she was just delighted to find herself in a book. And so I went to see her yesterday, and she had some homemade chocolate cake, which she gave us, and we went and ate it on Napili Beach, which was wonderful. And this is Jason and his sons at the Tasty Crust. a local favorite. And you know, people say, you know, why do you go to the Tasty Crust? The food's not that good. Well, Anthony Bourdain went there and sat at that counter and ate their food. So people, listen up. That's good food. Anyway, I love the Tasty Crust. My dear friend David Taylor used to go there and spend 3-hour breakfasts solving all of the problems of the world. Not the water department, no. And then here's sort of the interface between people who live and work in Maui and tourists. I took this at Wailea, and my take on this is that it's a tradesman, and he's got to go, you know, around to his places to do his work, and he's giving the people in the Mustang convertibles a little message that, you know, I'm here on business. And then the King Kamehameha School sign. This is a little story. You spend most of your life inside your head, make it a nice place to be. I love this one, and I don't know who puts these signs up, but the sayings up, but they're very good at it. And then, so this is 2 years ago, of course, and then here's this spring. Nothing can dim the light which shines from within. And then here's yesterday. Be present in all things and thankful for all things. So I see this. When I saw this sign, I thought, oh, well, did they remake the sign? No, the sign actually survived the fire. And here it is, outside the school. And then here is also this year, this man, PJ, he escaped from the fire on his skateboard. And this is Princess, who has a whole book of ideas about how to remake Lahaina in a good way. And this fellow is Kalani, and his nephew was at the Super Bowl pre-game show. You know, it was a wonderful moment for Lahaina to be remembered to millions of people across the country. And so I asked him if I could take his picture, and I said, oh, so you got a Luna shirt on? And he said, yeah, his nephew was there at the Super Bowl. So. And here's Kirk Bowes, who's in the room with us. And I took this picture. My mom had a bunch of pictures that we couldn't take them back to Canada, so we wanted to donate them. And so somebody said, take them to Kirk at the Banyan Tree Gallery, and they'll sell them and raise money for the Keiki Art Program. I thought, great, I'll go and see this guy, Kirk. And so I went in, and Kirk said, yeah, love to take the pictures. Hey, Kirk, can I take your photograph? Because I was doing that all over Lahaina in 2022. And he holds up the picture, and there he is. What a fantastic guy. Kirk, come on up. Amen.
I brought my picture that Arifin signed.
Yeah.
And ideally, when I rebuild my art studio, I'm going to put this up in it as a great memory. I also noticed in the picture I was clean shaven, so I look a little bit younger. But
Wow.
that's a good excuse anyway.
Well, Kirk, I'm so glad we met 2 years ago. Because, you know, when the fire happened, you were the only person of all the people I'd photographed I knew how to reach. Because I had your card, right? Everybody else I had just met for a moment on the street or wherever.
It's cool that you had my card because all mine burned up.
Yeah, well, precisely, yeah.
I had 2 T-shirts, 2 pairs of shorts, and my dog, you know.
Oh my God, yeah, and what a story. So Kirk lived in Kahua Street with his wife Laura,
Yeah.
and he is a prolific and inspiring artist here in Lahaina. So
Thanks. I paid him to say that. I mean.
yeah, you did not. Where's the check? So I'm so glad that you could be here with us tonight, and so that's what we're going to do tonight is to talk to a few of the people who are in the photographs from a couple of years ago, and so Kirk, first of all, tell us a bit about yourself and your relationship with Lahaina and Maui.
Sure. My family moved to Lahaina in 1973 when I was 15 years old, and so I went to Lahaina Luna High School. I graduated from there in 1976. My first year of school, when I was a sophomore at Lahaina Luna, there was only like 6 haole kids in the school. Yeah, we were like the beginning of the wave of migration from the West Coast. The Sheraton Hotel opened in 1964, and so prior to that, everything was sugar and pineapple, right? And so unless you worked in some bedroom capacity, like at a school teacher or fireman or something, there wasn't a lot of diversity in the employment. So in the 9 years of the development of the resort, it created an opportunity for people like my dad, who was a businessman living in California, to come out and do something. And so there was a company that bought, it was a real tiny little printing house, basically, in Lahaina. It was back behind the Sly Mongoose, the bar over there. And they headhunted my dad to come out and sell printing and advertising to the hotels who needed things like menus and rack cards and things. And so that was an opportunity for my family to move out here. And you know, I didn't know what to do. You know, my dad came back with a bunch of pictures and said, "You guys want to move to Hawaii?" And you know, all we knew of Hawaii in 1973 was the C&H commercials that we'd see on TV, the original Hawaii Five-0 with Jack Lord, right? And the Hawaiian Punch commercials. So I thought it was like one island out here, that I was going to be going to school barefoot on the beach and stuff. And I was like, yeah, let's move to Hawaii, you know? It's like, and at the time I was in summer school, so I would have said, yeah, let's move to the North Pole, I don't care. You know? But it worked out to be great, and I always thank my dad for having the courage and the sort of adventurous spirit that, you know, got him to uproot his family and move out here. You know, the pictures that he showed were real meaningful to me because on August 8th, you know, a big portion of my life burned up, right? And it wasn't just my home or the town, but my history, right? And it's not going to come back in any way, shape, or form that even resembles what it was like. And I have personally found a lot of healing. It didn't happen right away. It took, like, for 6 months, I was really upset. But I began to pray after 6 months hard for the people that I felt were responsible for a lot of it, and began to get some relief myself. But I was a school teacher at Camp Third. And so when you put up the pictures with those sayings in there, I thought, oh man, I got to write those down afterwards because those are really important, you know. And so anyway, this is a really cool opportunity to come and share. And
oh, that's great. Well, thank you for being here. So let's go back to 2022.
Sure.
And so how was your life at the time this photo was taken?
I was living my dream. At that time, I was like 64 years old, pretending I was retired, running the art gallery there in the historic courthouse building. And I'm an artist, so I was kind of living my dream. My house on Kahua Street was bought and paid for. We bought that home and fixed it up, and we never thought we were going to have to move again ever. And my nut to crack, believe that, get this, when living on Maui, I was living in my house in Lahaina, and it cost us $700 a month to live there, right? Including my property taxes, all my utility bills, everything, you know. And so I thought I had slayed the dragon, man. I thought like I'd won the lottery, basically, right? I figured out how I could live on Maui for the rest of my life with my Social Security check and still have some money left over. And I would ride my bicycle from my home down to the art gallery, and it only took 7 minutes to do that. And depending, you know, I think my head on a swivel because of the cars. But it was so cool because no parking problems either, right? Just roll up to the front door, lock my bike, and cruise in and out. And then in addition to running the art gallery, I was at 30 to 35 years ago, I was a teacher at King Kamehameha Third Elementary School. And that's why the sign was real meaningful to me. I taught fifth grade, and I taught kindergarten 1 year, and I taught first grade there for several years. And fast forward 2022, I'm currently, and was in 2022, the program director for the Lahaina Arts Guild, which is a nonprofit that provides art education for children in the West Maui community. And prior to the fire, we taught 3,500 art lessons at Camp Third, at Sacred Hearts, at Princess Nahiana Anna, and we work with the Boys and Girls Club and the YMCA, and in some other settings as well. So I'd ride my bike into town during the day, I'd work in the art gallery, and then on other days I'd go over to the school and teach art. And then at night I'd ride my bike back into town and go to one of the art galleries where my work was displayed at 505 Front Street and paint and you know, cajole people into helping the art consultants sell my art, right? So I was pretty much living my dream. You know, and I'm still living a dream. It's a slightly different dream.
Well, there was sort of
changed, though.
You know, I look at that picture of you in the gallery, the Banyan Tree Gallery, and I think, you know, this, like you just described, I can see all that now, that you described this life, which was just this ideal life that you were living in. You know, like, what on earth could go wrong, right? I mean,
telephone poles.
So
I win.
So I know that that you and Laura, that you lived in Kahua Street, of course, and I know that about a third of the people who died in the fire.
Yeah, that was
from Kahua Street.
super gnarly. It still kind of haunts us both. We have
Yeah.
PTSD. We've had really good counseling since the fire. We're real fortunate about that. And we've got a great support network of people around us that love us and care for us. And that has really helped provide some healing and some emotional catharsis, whatever you want to call it. But it's
Yeah.
like, mental health is a big deal. And
Yeah.
for me, painting is a great therapy, but I also work with the kids, and painting with the kids is totally therapeutic too. And right after the fire, literally 3 weeks to the day after the fire, I went in and started working with kids in the hotels. So there were essentially fire refugees living in the hotels. And I took art supplies in, and I went to the Montage, and then we went to the Sheraton, and then we worked at the Hyatt Hotel as well with kids. And we'd sit around and paint with little kids whose houses burned up too, right? And who suffered some other severe stuff that I don't even want to describe. But we could relate, right? And me, an old man, and them, a little kid. But it was real cool because sometimes you can't express with words as easily what you can do with some paint or crayon or pencil, and it helps to get it out, right? And so I feel that I'm real blessed and fortunate to be able to still participate today, because we do that still, that we continue to teach those classes, and we work with King Kamehameha III Elementary School a lot, as well as with Sacred Hearts Academy in their new locations. And like I said, we work with the YMCA and the Boys and Girls Club as well. So.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
that's fantastic!
So,
Wow!
Yeah,
Well,
I don't know if that
what a
answered your
gift!
question. I don't think I
Well, that
answered your
answers
question.
lots of questions, actually. Thank you. it does. And that's so wonderful that you through you have your own personal trauma, and then you are helping children as well, sort of
Well,
work through
that's
theirs.
one of the things about this event, that it's different, I think, than like if just my house would have burned down, our whole town burned down, right? It was
Yeah.
a way of
Yeah.
life for generations of people, right? And so there's some comfort in knowing that you didn't go through it alone, right? It's like probably the
Well,
way
yeah.
the survivors
Yeah.
of the Titanic felt, right? And even though like on the Titanic, there were people that were like in first class that never would have related or spoken to the people in stowage, right? It's not that way, man. If you went through the fire and survived it, doesn't matter, if you survived it, there's a bond that we have now.
Yeah.
And there's a resiliency. And Hawaii is a really special place. I wasn't born here, but like you said, I love it here. I've been here for, 51 years, and so majority of my life. And, it is a really interesting community. People in Hawaii, aloha is not just a word, it's a way that people relate, and there is a strength. And everybody's healing at different rates, everybody has to process this differently. And everybody's got a different vision of what the future could or would look like, but for me, just taking it one day at a time and being grateful and not worrying about what's going to happen tomorrow has been a real solace. So.
How has it changed you as an artist, do you think?
My art got better.
Yeah,
It was a
okay,
total trip.
yeah.
And I hear that from other people, right?
Yeah.
I've been painting like every day for the last decade. And I was a starving artist when I was a young guy. So during the late 1980s, shortly after I got married, I was a member of the Lahaina Art Society, and I was selling my artwork underneath the banyan tree, like so many other artists have done here in Lahaina. And it was one of the happiest times of my life. And I'd sell some paintings, they'd be like $200 or $400 or whatever. And had a couple little shows in the gallery there. And pretty much living my dream. And then I got sidetracked and did other things. And art's almost a ridiculous way to try to make a living. Don't ever do that. Art's a way to make a life, but it's not a way to make money. Don't go into it for that motivation. If there's any kids listening out there, it's like being a musician, right? So at any rate, I became a sailboat captain. I drove sailboats because I love the ocean, and I did that for a better part of a decade. I like kids, and I became a school teacher. I did that for the better part of a decade, and I worked in the resort industry in various capacities, mostly in recreation, having fun with visitors. But as I got to be in my early 50s, I thought, what I really want to do when I retire, when I get to my current age. And I thought, the happiest time of my life probably was when I was painting. So I MacGyvered my life, and I quit my job working in the resort and went to work in a gallery on Front Street a little over a decade ago, and saw and learned about art sales at a very high level. And I just started painting again every day. And I built an art studio off of my home, which unfortunately burned up. But I built an art, and I just started painting all the time, right? And eventually got into some art galleries and was selling my work and having fun, getting some positive traction. But to answer your question, how my art has changed since the fire, everything burned up. All of it, man. I lost
Right.
it. So
Yeah.
the art that I sold in the last decade and in my previous run, that's still out there, which is really cool. It's a little bit of a legacy for me. But I had like 200 canvases in my studio and in my home and in 2 separate art galleries and some pretty darn good work, right? And it all just went psh, like that, right? And so the first, it was just a head spinner for a while, right? But we lost everything else too, right? And but I began to paint right after the fire, 11 days after the fire. I got some art materials and just started painting. And my colleagues and friends were really super cool. They began to give me art materials and supplies. And we were staying at a house in Kapalua, and I started painting in these people's garage. And I just started painting, and I just picked up where I left off. And I paint fearlessly. Now, one of the things, it was a
I remember you saying that.
yeah, it was a
Yeah,
near-death
yeah.
experience for us. We almost died that day 3 times, right? We got trapped on our street. 19 of my neighbors died right around our house, right? I mean, a stone's throw. 5 people died on the lot next door, 3 people and the neighbors on the other side. The little 7-year-old boy who perished in the car with his sister and his grandparents, that was like 3 doors down from us. He used to ride his bicycle on our driveway. So I don't want to drag out the trauma and the tragedy because it was intense. It was intense for us. 42 people perished on our street, right? And we barely got out of there. And then we were trapped in Lahaina, and I ran down Front Street and getting the hair singed off my body and the flames and stuff. It was nuts. It's psycho. It's a bad dream, right?
So you see this photograph here?
Yeah, this is on our property. So this is when Arifin was here last time, and that's where our house used to be. So that's where they bulldozed it, and that's a great shot actually too, because I'm doing like the victory thing, like we will survive, we will rebuild, right? Don't know when that'll be, but but it's a great picture, and yeah, so that's our neighborhood, and they cleared our lot, but they hadn't cleared all the lots around us yet. And you can see the light industrial area, Emerald Plaza off to the left. That's over where Kahoma Stream is, where the ditch is. We lived right we're the next to last house on that dead-end street, right? Where so many people got trapped in their cars and either tried to run out on foot or didn't make it out. And we're only the second owners of that property, too. The family that owned that house before us bought it in the 1950s from Pioneer Mill when they first offered it to their workers. Because if you could see what I'm looking at the old base yard where the Pioneer Mill used to be. And the Tagaped family that owned that property had it in their family for since the 50s. And there were some siblings that were on the deed. One of them passed away and they were all in their 80s. And when it came up on the market, my wife and I were fortunate enough to be able to purchase it. And then we remodeled it, fixed it up, made it our dream forever home. And it's a nice vacant lot now.
So, yeah. So, and this photograph really happened spontaneously because you had taken Willoughby and I there. You took us into the burn zone and to show us where you lived. And I said, hey, Kurt, can I take your photograph? And it was just this spontaneous thing that just happened in that moment. And I guess in terms of the way photography works, there are some photographers who just want to take the world as it is and they just want to photograph what's there. I guess partly what I do is I say, hey, Kurt, can I take your picture? and something happens, So thank you for that.
Yeah, you took a great picture of me too. My artwork is with Martin and MacArthur now. And it's in Whalers Village, Shops at Wailea. It's over in Honolulu and Ala Moana Shopping Center. And I go down to Whalers Village and I sit on the front porch and paint several nights a week. And Arifin, you took a great picture of me sitting down there too that was used by ABC News. Because as a consequence of this event, I've been on national television. I was interviewed by ABC News. Sybil Beat came over and flew out and interviewed us a bunch of times. I was on KHNO and Channel 2 News with Bryce Moore a couple of times. I'm sure there's several other agencies, and it's all kind of a blur at this point. ABC was pretty fun, though. Those guys were cool. They flew out producers from
So you become like a media star.
A little bit, yeah.
But you have a story to tell. It's a great story, and I think it's a story of resilience and hope.
It is
That's
now.
what I see.
You wouldn't have wanted to hear the interview the first 6 months.
No, exactly.
There would have been a lot of bleeping. Beep.
Yeah, but I think that everybody has experienced what happened in Lahaina in different ways, and the healing happens at different times and
for different
ways,
people.
So,
And I still meet with a group of people on a regular basis, and we do that for therapeutic reasons. And
Yeah.
it's interesting to see because people that didn't lose their homes are still impacted really heavily, right? People that lived on
Yeah.
the west side,
Yeah.
right, that really loved Lahaina or whatever, you didn't have to lose your home to still feel the pain, right? And of course, people that lost loved ones, that was really, that's the epitome of like having something taken away from you they didn't expect, and that's really rough. My next door neighbor, one of the guys that didn't make it out, Juan, his wife and teenage daughter, they were in one of the vehicles trying to get out of the neighborhood, and he made the ill-fated decision to jump out and try to go back and get in his pickup truck and save it, and didn't make it out. And on the Friday after the fire, the Friday was Tuesday all afternoon and Wednesday, early morning. And the cops let us back in on Friday around 1 o'clock, and Juan's brother and sister-in-law were walking around looking for him, right? And, that's the kind of stuff I'll never forget, man.
Yeah.
I have a video on my phone of that, right? People were still trying to find each other, right? And so when it comes to rebuilding, I have mixed feelings about that. It was my forever home, so I had a real secure place theoretically to live for the rest of my life. But that fire proved that that's just a myth anyway. That kind of thinking is kind of
Right.
illusion.
Stability is an illusion, right?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
But, so
yeah.
you got to take that into consideration. But at the same time, when I'm down there, I think about it. We've got some pretty cool plans for rebuilding, but sometimes I think about, I don't know if I really want to live in that location again, right?
Interesting.
My
Yeah,
wife is all
yeah.
dialed in on it. She's like, let's rebuild, but I'm
Yeah,
kind of like, I don't
yeah.
know. So.
Well, thank you for coming
Thanks.
to talk tonight, and
Thank
here
you
is
so much.
to continued fearlessness.
It's like fear is a healthy thing, but you can't let it if you acknowledge it, right?
Yeah,
If you
yeah.
acknowledge your fears, if you name them, it takes the power out of them, right? And if you can share that with other people, it's really cool too, because that's where I found healing.
Yeah.
A couple of ways. I'll end with this. The solution for me came when I began to pray for the people that I thought were responsible, right? Because I had a lot of unresolved, justifiable anger. And that was eating me alive. They say that kind of resentment is like drinking poison and hoping another person will die, right? It just kills you, right? And so when I turned that over to God and I said, okay, God, that's between you and them. It's not between me and them. And I began to actually pray for them, like legitimately, because I don't know how some of those guys sleep at night, to be honest with you. Some of the people that were responsible for some of the things that happened, and that's something they have to deal with. I don't have to deal with that now because I turned that over to God. But the remedy for me, and this is what I'll close with, is if I can be grateful for the things around me every day that I have when I wake up in the morning, because we only get life one day at a time anyway, right? So if I can just be grateful, and there's a million things to be grateful for them if I'll stop and look for them, that creates a conduit between me and the Spirit of God, if you will, and so that I can enjoy being on earth, for the time that I'm here. And then when it comes to tomorrow, I don't worry about it anymore, right?
Yeah.
That thing about the future and security, that's all an illusion anyway, because nobody knows what tomorrow has. And those two things, not worrying about tomorrow, letting it take care of itself, being grateful, is a real armor, and it heals you, but it also defends you as well. So thanks for letting me share, and Arifin, thank you.
Thanks
You're
so
a
much.
blessing.
Yeah.
And glad you got
Aloha. So thanks so much, Kirk. That's so much appreciated. And what a story, and all the very best to you and Laura on the continuing journey. So bless you. We're going to go now to Tacoma, Washington, where Kevin Harsono, who I met briefly back in 2022 when I went to Ed 76 to fill up my car a couple of times, and I'd been to Ed's a lot over the years because we used to get our car serviced there and everything. So, and there was this new guy there, and I said, hey, and we just had some nice conversations, and there he is, and I love it, Mount Rainier, the Great Northwest. Nice one, Kevin. And Kevin was in the photograph, on the first one. He's there in Ed 76 in the, and giving us the shaka and just looking fantastic. So, and here you are, man. It is so great to see you. And so when as you know, Kevin, when I had my show in Victoria, and I didn't know how to reach you, but I used your photograph on my posters and all my publicity and my media. It's like I was working on making you famous, man. And oh yeah, there he is, right? And so. When we were here last spring, I got in touch with Doug, who was also involved with Ed 76, the manager, and I realized I had this phone number for Doug, and I thought, okay, and I didn't know I had it, and then he put me in touch with Kevin, and we just talked last week for the first time, and just had a long, wonderful talk. And Kevin, it's so great to see you here.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me, Arifin,
back in Maui.
Akakū Upstairs as well. And I wish I could be there physically too, but for now I'm reaching out from the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah. Well, this is fantastic, and thanks for bringing that that landscape of the Northwest into us here in Maui as well. Another volcano, from one volcano to another, right?
That is true. We just survived a cyclone the other day here.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad you have power back. So, Kevin, tell us a bit about yourself and your relationship with Lahaina and Maui.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Indonesia, but yet I was born in California, and I ended up moving back about like a decade ago to a connection of my family. I ended up finding myself in the oil and gas industry. And I think this was maybe around 2019. I was running and managing several stations around the Bay Area. Then the pandemic happened, and through a friend of mine, the opportunity come to light about, hey, you want to help like the ones in Hawaii? And I said, I've never been, but give me one day. And of course, like within half a day, I said, yeah, what am I thinking? Of course I would go. And then, so I ended up moving there as soon as the travel was opened back up again. And the rest is history until eventually I met Arifin. And it was just one afternoon, and I see, oh, this is a new customer. And turns out this new customer has spent like way more time than.
Yeah, who was new?
Yeah, exactly. Like, who am I talking to? I'm sorry,
but. And then you moved to Maui, and you were involved at Ed 76, right?
Yes. I think I was there, and then of course the initial plan was, okay, maybe I will help in the initial year and then move back to the Bay and then move on to the next venture. But I think without realizing it, from having met like so many regulars and being introduced to even like what we call as a maybe aloha spirit, and I experienced kindness that I've never seen or experienced. It makes me feel at home, to the point where I had planned to extend my stay, maybe like 5 years or even more. And it certainly now, like while we're here too, like I can't help but being reminded about nights where I happened to be in my first year working essentially every day, and then working in a New Year's Eve, and this auntie who's in her 80s just stopped by late at night, and I asked, Auntie, you're pretty late. How can I help you? What can I do? And then she just say, oh, nothing. I'm just here. I know you're working, so I got you some plate lunch for dinner. And to me, every now and then I would look back at that moment, and that was one of those things that you can't put a price, or you can't just recreate that. And yeah, I think that's just like one of my many bittersweet memories from Lahaina.
And that time that the photograph that I took the photograph of you in April of 2022, I think your life was in a pretty good place at that point. Would you say?
Yeah, I have to say at the time, the business was already running smoothly. We got a solid group of people and team members, so I was able to reduce my workday, and then it ended up again from our previous conversation, because I didn't know the first year. Oh, I didn't realize that Charles Lindbergh's grave is on the island, and then to explore more of the island instead of, oh yeah, the beach is 5 minutes away, yet I've never been. And in that moment, I remember like going up to the crater of Haleakala, or even like going PPY Trail on the other side, or camping in Nahiku. And I want to say at the time, I like to ride motorcycle, and I still do. And in that time, you can easily find me if I'm not at work. Chances I'm riding my motorcycle around the island or camping somewhere.
Yeah, so
And
a beautiful time of your life, and maybe, like Kirk's situation. Kirk was living this, was living the dream here too. I think in his own way. And
oh
so,
yes,
again, what on earth could go wrong? And I guess that's the way the world is. Things do. And so, how did the fire of 2023? How was your experience of that? How has it changed your life?
I think I remember we were without power for maybe a couple of days, and then um, at the time the 76 has closed down, but yet I decided to stay on the island, and I happened to manage one of the new store on Front Street. So I went there and to find it completely out of shape. And I've never seen Front Street as quiet as it was. So I took a short video, maybe it was around like 2:30, without realizing that that would be the last view I will ever have of not just a Front Street, but even the community and everyone being in that state. But again, I mean, to look back at it, it felt like in a way it was being being uprooted and again being removed from what was familiar. And I'm grateful that I have Camila, my loved one. She certainly uh, plays a crucial role, because I remember when I start seeing the name, and I remember Terry Thomas was the first name, and then that's when going from 3 days of in disbelief to just crying uncontrollably, and which was like to me at the time, wow, I haven't cried for years. And but again, like I've come a long way, and then I've gone like to see specialists as well in the process it and talk with fellow survivors who find their way in the Seattle area as well. And but to answer your question, it in a way maybe it strengthened my empathy, because I'm sure like well, many of us have seen like disasters happen like on TV, and then but yet like to none of us would ever imagine for it to happen directly to us. So for from that moment, it was a complete eye opener, and I try to in my day to day now maybe to catch myself perhaps and remind myself in a moment where I'm dealing with like a sort of difficult situation to maybe sort of kind of project that kindness that I received back during my time on the island, and maybe like to offer like my help in my best capacity. Because even though like it was only less than 4 years, I've gotten like so much wisdom and then help from the community. And again, I am on one hand hopeful about like seeing the news and seeing, oh, the rebuilding process is happening. And then also there's the part where again like certain things that money cannot buy, which is like the community, which is the history. But yet here we are, and then we can only move forward and with the best intention. And yeah, maybe I should have to reword it again, I guess. Now it makes me more soft in a way, and then yeah, optimistic as well, because having gone through something like that, then there is also a purpose then while we're still here to maybe project that and spread that kindness towards others.
How are you doing now, Kevin?
I want to say, well, I cannot say I'm hiking to Waihee Trail or in PPY, because now it's 40 degrees and I'm still finding it a bit cold compared to Maui. But right now, like we're slowly rebuilding brick by brick. And again, I'm shifting the intention, like shifting into something that more maybe like nonprofit based, because I believe and after that time too, one thing that I witnessed firsthand is the very first thing that very first people who shows up was the neighbors, was the community, people that I didn't know who just drop a care package. And then that in turn becomes this chain reaction where when we would go out, we would try to get extra package for our neighbors. And but I think like to go back into that question too, I think I'm finding my space, myself in a space where I'm slowly shifting myself into a position to be more of service of others now.
Yeah. You've got a lot of business experience, I know, having had the store at Ed 76, and now I think you're working in business now in some sort of supervisory management context. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. And then of course it was when I moved to the company, of course many people were wondering where I moved from, and when they found out about Maui, of course there's quite a few of a reaction. But now like 1 year later, it becomes like kind of reverse. I mean reverse in a way, because from being the new guy to the one who is responsible for other people's well-being. And again, now one thing that I certainly learned from the island is what makes a community, what makes a town is not just the name, not just the building, but it is the people. And in that sense, I'm applying it towards this business, how I'm trying in my own imperfect way to always listen to what my internal people needs first, make sure they feel heard, understood, and taken care of. Then we can move forward to the outer world.
That's beautiful. And I think that's part of the lesson that you learned from being here, and also the challenges that you faced since then. Yeah, yeah. What and so you're thinking of going into possibly some nonprofit work, which perhaps will align with the values that you're finding in your life.
Yeah, because I mean, while the business itself, and it was something that I came from family of a lot of members of my family have built a business or owned a business in the past, even in Indonesia too. And so, but yet now I wanted to have a maybe like more direct impact like locally, which is why I chose the shift into a nonprofit industry, because now even in Tacoma too, I realize there's a huge presence of people who would support small businesses, or even like help funding for small business. And that is a relief in its own way, because realizing even though now I'm not on the island, I also meet the community who believes in the power of building from internal before like building from outside.
I'm wondering, while Kevin's with us on Zoom here, does anybody have a question for him? That's arising. What's that?
When are you coming back?
Question, when are you coming back?
As soon as possible. I'm still saving it for now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I sure hope that you will get back here sometime, Kevin. I know that you will, and I know that you will be welcomed with open arms by this community, because you weren't here for a long time, but I think that you played an important role. And I think that, you know, when I was choosing a photograph for my posters, a friend said to me, "You got to use the picture of Kevin. You know, he's a real Hawaiian. He's doing the shaka. You know, just look at him. He embodies the aloha spirit." So, you know.
I think, yeah. I mean, I cannot say with the first time you told me that, I can't help but I don't know if I can. Yeah, I can't pretend, but it just. So yeah, you certainly got my good angle.
Yeah. So you're doing something right. Well, here's to you coming back here. And, you know, well, we live in Victoria, and Kevin is in Tacoma. So we are close by. So looking forward to meeting you in person very soon. Okay?
Absolutely.
And thank you so much for being here tonight. And I know you're going to stay on and watch the rest. I hope so as well. So.
Thank you again, Arifin and Akakū Upstairs too, for having me.
Yeah. Very good. Terima kasih. Take care. Thank you.
Sama-sama.
Mahalo.
Hello.
So there's Kevin, and so great to see him, and you know, it's funny with, no, I know, with both Kirk and with Kevin, like when I met Kirk for a short time, and then when Willie and I came back here last spring, we invited Kirk and Laura over to where we were staying, and we just talked nonstop for 2.5 hours. And same way with Kevin, when we talked the other night, you know, it was like an hour and a half, and there were so many directions that the conversation could go. So it's very interesting as a photographer to have this moment to meet somebody, and it's really just a fleeting moment. And then 2 years later, however long it is, you talk, and there's so much to talk about. And I think it's because of what happened here. But still, it's a very interesting experience. You know, like they just seem like they're old friends. So, and now I am happy. Oh, there's Kevin. There he is. See, look, a real Hawaiian, shaka. Look, interesting place. So there you go. Aloha spirit. There he is. Now, Ariana and Teddy, and they're both here, and John here as well. Bless you. Good to see you all. And Ariana is an old friend. We met when come on up. Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you. Great to see you.
Hello.
Ariana and I met, I think it's almost 10 years ago.
10 years ago.
It is 10 years ago, when you were working with the Lahaina Restoration Foundation, and I came up to the Halepai Printing Museum.
First we met somewhere else.
Oh, was it somewhere else? Okay, where?
So Arifin and Waluya
Yeah.
have this wonderful, I know you all know them, so, but here anyway, have this wonderful, just so giving spirits wherever they go. And I used to be the museum director for Lahaina Restoration Foundation back in 2014. I was doing the Hawaiian Music Festival, was that it?
Okay, yeah. Oh, yes, okay,
Yes.
yeah.
And so which still is in existence
in the park,
on
yeah.
every last Thursday of every month. And because right now, I think the last one, which is still ongoing. They're,
Yeah.
of course, in different locations now than the Baldwin House front lawn. And the Baldwin House on Front Street was the offices for the Lahaina Restoration Foundation, and my office was upstairs. And I was putting after the music festival, there's all the benches and so on and so forth downstairs that I'm hauling and putting away, and my mother's helping me put away with. And Arifin just jumps in and goes, "Oh, well, no, I'll help you," and then he just starts putting everything away.
Oh, gosh.
and Waluya, and so I think you put most of everything away that night. And that's when
I'm glad I was helpful.
But that's when I first met Arifin,
Yeah,
and that's
yeah.
just typical of their spirit.
Well, thanks so much, and it's been great to get to know you and your family over the years, and I know that
And then you went to the Halepai print shop.
the Halepai Print Shop, which as a graphic designer was a very important place for me to come
Yes.
to in Lahaina, and I know that
and you
yeah.
made all the brochures.
Right. Okay. So, and yeah, Kat. Oh, hold up the mic.
sorry
Okay,
about
Kat,
that.
thanks very much.
Sorry.
Thank you. Yeah. And I know you grew up in West Maui, on the north side of West Maui, right?
I
Yeah.
grew up in the area of Kahakaʻaloa. I was born and raised on Maui and grew up out
Yeah.
there. But then I went to school. I went to school first here in Maui, and then I transferred up to University of Victoria in Canada, where Arifin and Waluya are
coincidentally,
from.
yeah.
And so when I met him in Lahaina, it was just so wonderful. And I was working for the Maritime Museum of BC. They were closing for earthquake proofing, and I had a wonderful opportunity to come home and live in the prison on Prison Street.
That's right. You and Teddy, yeah.
And yes, I've been in prison. And and work for the Lahaina Restoration Foundation. And I ended up staying, rather than 3 months, I was very appreciative to stay there much longer than that. And I loved working for them. And I met lovely people.
Yes, and then you went to Ireland.
Yes.
Is that right? Yeah.
I left the Lahaina Restoration Foundation and then went to Ireland to do a Master's of Science in World Heritage and Conservation Management, essentially. So my background's museums, culture, heritage, archaeology. That's my general. But after Ireland, I was able to come home and I work next door to where I grew up in Kakaloa, or not in the village, but out near it, and manage a fine art gallery there, and live right next door. So I had to go halfway around the world.
And here you are back
Be next door.
as the gallery director at Turnbull Studios
Yes,
on
yes.
the north side. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And it's.
And how is it being back here?
Oh, I am very appreciative to be here on Maui, and I'm so glad to be in our community at this point in time, because we are unique. The Maui community is so connected in a time where elsewhere we're isolated, people are anonymous. Here, we are not anonymous. You're seen here. We see each other. We know who each other are. We may just see you in Costco like every so often, but we know who each other are. You're not invisible. You are part of a community. And Kirk's mentioned it, and so did John, about how we are such a strong, supportive community. And I think that's something Lahaina very much showed us.
So you, in the context of this evening, so you weren't living in Lahaina, but because the island is so connected, and your roots, on the island are are as deep as they can be, really, because you've been here. You were born here and have lived here most of your life. How has the experience been for you as such a long-time member of this community?
Well, of course, my experience is going to be entirely different than those who were there and have such a strong connection to Lahaina. So mine is from a different perspective. And but of course, I know. Sorry.
It's okay. We're here.
A lot of the people who didn't make it.
Yeah.
Sorry. But the unique, as I was saying, that our community is connected. And the beauty of Lahaina, that Kirk also mentioned, is Lahaina is made up of all these little communities, and they all had their own unique, every street had its own identity, but it was all connected to each other, and that made Lahaina. And then Lahaina is also connected to everybody. When I first came back from Canada and was working for Lahaina Restoration, here I am, Howley girl, very, very pale. I've been up there for 4 years. And so I came home, and they're like, "So you're from Canada, eh?" Actually, I grew up in Kakaloa. What? Oh, I have auntie so-and-so, and this and that, and you're all connected. In some way, shape, or form, everyone is connected here on Maui. Even if you've only been here a few years, you still have a shared connection. And with Lahaina, we're like a flower on beautiful flowers on the lei. We're all tied together with a really strong cord.
Mm.
And it's beautiful to see how that all comes together.
How has the fire of last year changed your life in any way? I mean, there's a lot of grieving, I would think, because you had a lot of close friends who lived there.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. But at the same time, there's so many other kindness, courage, acts of kindness that our community did, which helps that as well to offset that. And the community, for how it's affected me, while I work in I manage the Fine Art Gallery now. And of course, we have many artists, wonderful artists who I love dearly. And of course, some of them were in Lahaina, or many had work in Lahaina, lost so much beautiful artwork. Of course, the most important thing we lost was life. But of course, that affected, some had to move. Some are trying to recreate in different ways and trying to support them as much as possible. And also trying to navigate business too. We want to, and when we reopened, I was, how are visitors going to come back, and and then I know this is probably not the experience of everyone. I'm probably just very lucky. And also we are in that unique location in Kakula, or outside of Kakula Village. And the majority of our visitors that have come through are conscientious, have heart. Many of them have that connection. So it's been nice to see how that our Maui, the Lahaina identity is connected to the Maui identity, and then the larger perspective, because so many of them share their love of Lahaina and their memories, and being concerned on how can I visit Maui and be conscientious and be respectful. And that's what has been at the forefront of all the visitors that have come through the gallery, for the most part. I've had a few that had to politely educate. But the majority of them have brought such heart and connection and stories and share and something that this is a little off topic, but something I love, something I think that about your photographs and that you decided to choose black and white is Maui has such glorious technicolor. We know it. But it can be distracting too. And having them in black and white, you're able to focus on life's moments. And the unique nature of our local moments. Everyday little ones that we don't necessarily photograph, market, but that make up our community. Mm-hmm. Going to the gas station, seeing somebody at Tasty Grass, seeing some uncle on the sidewalk, and asking him how he's doing. It's just all those little moments, and it's a wonderful way to have that connection to the Lahaina that was. And while the materiality of Lahaina is not there, that spirit and the values that we ascribe to a place is what's important. And it's how we create meaning. And that community, Lahaina's community, is still part of the Maui community. It's still part of even the tourist community. And it's nice to see that meaning and significance still present.
And and I sense there's a lot of hope within you about what has happened here, but still a lot of hope for this community.
Because of the strength of the community itself.
Yeah, yeah.
It's going to be a long process,
Mm-hmm.
and it won't be the one that was. The materiality, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm hoping that the spirit will remain.
And do you see, how do you see being involved in that in some way? Do you?
Well, I think we all are part of creating Maui,
Yeah,
and
Yeah.
you need to bring that heart to it. So
Yeah.
I will through where I am as
Yeah.
much as I can.
yeah, yeah.
And it's lovely to see what other people are also want, like the arts community is doing to help heal the community as well. It's wonderful
Yeah.
to see.
Thank you so much for talking this evening. I know that you had some reluctance to do so, and that you didn't know if you would hold it together, and that is okay, because when you said that to me this afternoon, you didn't know if you could hold it together. That really touched me, and really got, I think, to the heart of the matter about loss. And how, you know, you have experienced it so directly in your personal losses of close friends, including close friends. And so that, I think, is so much of feeling, because, you know, in my taking these photographs, there's sort of this, this observer, you know, the photographer as an observer, and loving the place, but really feeling that emotion about what has happened here, and how much loss and how healing needs to and can happen.
Well, for the you talk about loss, and but also that is lost because everyone is connected.
Yeah,
I
so
mean,
those connections.
It's like,
strong connections.
I may not have known everybody of who passed, but you knew them they were part of your community.
Yeah.
You were aware of them.
Yeah.
And everybody has that kind of connection. And I think that loss, in a sense, that we feel that is also a strength.
Yeah.
Because it's, and even those, the tourists, they feel a sense of loss of the place that they have love for, too.
Absolutely. Yeah,
And
people
that
from around the world.
creates,
Yeah.
As Kirk said, from the survivor's perspective, is that bonds them. And I mean, for this little town in the middle of the Pacific, and we have this connection all over the world.
Beloved around the world
Yes.
by millions of people. I know, it's phenomenal.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that it does connect us through that loss, and hopefully that'll also help build a web of strength as well.
Yeah, exactly. So it's this community within itself, like you were saying. Each street in Lahaina had its own character.
Yes. I was on Prison Street,
yeah.
which is totally different than if you're in Akakū, or near Ma. It's everything has its different. Well,
Yeah.
I shouldn't say it because we have people here who really knew it.
Well, and then the connections to Maui all over Maui, because it's interesting how when I've shown people pictures I've taken of one person who I didn't know was connected. Oh, I know them. I work with them. You know, for example. So there's that the whole community of Maui, and then there's this
Huge
global reach of this little place.
I was in Ireland going to the bank trying to open up a bank account. And the girl's obviously American. She's Howley. But we're talking, and I ask her where she's from. She goes, "Oh, I'm from Hawaii." I go, "Oh, really?" And she goes, "Oh, you been?" You could say that. And so she tells me, well, she's from Maui.
Yeah.
And I'm going, Really? And so it ends up her dad and my dad have known each other for 30 years.
Oh, that's so cool. Wow.
You go 11,000 miles away. You can't escape Maui.
John's right here. Oh, that's lovely. And I think that is a unique thing about the what happened with Lahaina is this international reach, and how so many people love this place.
Yes.
Does anybody have any thoughts or questions? Mike, oh yeah.
I didn't think I had a question, but I just wondered, you mentioned that one of either Ariana or Kirk there was some connection to Lytton with somebody.
Oh, Lytton.
Lytton, British
Is that
Columbia.
you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Lytton burned down as well.
Yes.
I thought it might be useful to hear what you had to say. And we've been working with someone at UVic who's doing the climate disaster project. And I know this was only partially about climate, but I thought you might have something to add to that. And then I also was hoping there was time to hear from other people, like Lytton.
How's our time, Kat?
We have about five minutes.
About 5 minutes, okay. Yeah.
Well, for Lytton, BC suffered a similar destructive fire, and was also a historical town and had many house museums, and including I can, even though I no longer worked for the Lahaina Restoration Foundation, I still had a strong connection with the Wohing Chinese Museum and Cookhouse, which is also a Taoist temple. And Dr. Busaba Yip Douglas is the cultural director for the Wohing. And I still had connection to her throughout these last 10 years.
Yeah.
And a very similar situation happened in Lytton, with a almost very similar Taoist temple with very similar artifacts burned in a very similar way. And BC, and as a result to this, a museum conservator at the in Vancouver, BC, created something called the Heritage Emergency Response Network in Canada. We have something similar within the U.S. as well, but we haven't had such a it was such a parallel between the two fires and how to respond to to recover artifacts and that sort of thing. So I was able to talk to somebody there, and I forwarded that information to relevant people as well. So it was just, it's just such interesting connections that happen. Well,
and as we start to lose places that we know and love, I mean, that's part of what's happening now in the age of climate change. The situation here isn't, is this a climate change issue or not with what happened to Lahaina? I think with all these different situations, there are different factors which come in. But yeah, that was an interesting connection between Lytton, which is in our province, which burned down in 2021, and then Lahaina, of course.
And of course, we thank BC Hearn for sharing that information.
Yeah.
It was very, very. They tried to be as supportive as possible in sharing that.
Yeah. So I guess we should just about wrap up, Kat. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, actually, I would like to hear from a couple of other people who have long history. I know Yayoi is here, and she has some history in Lahaina directly. And Lynda, you've been here a long time as well. Is there anything you'd like to share?
Ariana, thank you so much.
Is there anything you'd like to share about the Lahaina and your relationship to it tonight, or no? Yeah, come on up.
Oh, wonderful.
Have a seat. Go ahead and have a seat.
Lynda, good to see you. Aloha.
My husband refuses to come up.
Aloha, Errol.
Speak about something like this because we felt so on the periphery and so far removed and so far away from it.
Because you're on the road to Hana, right?
We're on the road to
Yeah,
Hana,
yeah.
and we weren't there, but our childhoods are there. His father was one of the first managers of KBH back in the day, and I birthed all my kids there. I lived on Kahua Street.
What's KBH?
Kaanapali Beach.
Okay, all right. Thank
That's
you.
where everybody goes for vacation.
Sorry, just so you all know.
So we have a lot of history over there. And when you guys refer to those ties that Maui has and the little streets that are individual but so connected, on the other side of the island, we felt that. And, you know, we cried and we almost felt guilty for crying because we didn't have that personal experience there, other than we did lose friends. We've gone to some funerals and lost houses, and we had an unfortunate friend that lost 2 houses on opposite sides of the island. And you almost feel this survivor's guilt for crying because you weren't there in the thick of it. And with my job, I've been in the thick of it in a lot of places around the world. I'm with Doctors Without Borders, and I set up surgical units in war zones and disaster areas. I've been in Haiti and some other rough spots, and I've seen horrible, horrible disasters, but this was so personal, and you didn't know how to take it. My husband was one of the last safe people out, and I remember him sending me a video on the way home as going by what we still call, because we're old timers, the new Lahaina post office, which because it didn't used to be up there. And he's like, holy bleep, look what's going on here. And I go, you better get out of there. And he's sending me this video of debris just shooting straight across the road. And the huge telephone lines up there by Waihekuli Wayside looked like those ropes that they use in a gym for workout, where they wiggle those ropes. And I said, man, you got to get out of there. And he came home, and we're thinking, this is the worst storm we've felt in a long time. That was so strange. And woke up at 8 o'clock in the morning to people literally from all over the world asking if we were okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We couldn't wrap our head around it, you know? And there is that connectivity that you guys all talked about, that all around the world people know Lahaina, and it's a special place, and I hope whatever that is, that magic is what's gonna have people rise up and rise above and recreate. It's not the first time Lahaina burnt, because they have a history of it burning before, but I think there's some good, solid people, and I think we just need to have a heart space and a head space to listen, especially to the Hawaiian community. What do they want? First and foremost. We have a history of immigrants for different reasons, for whaling, for agriculture, for tourism, but there were people here long before us. And I think first and foremost, we need to hold a space and what collectively do they want, and then go from there. That's a good starting point.
Yeah, I think that's a great conclusion actually to our evening, you know, is to remember that and the territory that we're on, all as visitors. And your history is so deep here. Thank you so much for coming and sharing
Thank you.
some thoughts.
I wish he would have got it.
Hey?
He's not as emotional as me.
The emotion's good. The emotion's good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. I agree, the survivor's guilt, you know, it affected all of us in Lahaina, as much as sometimes you're like, oh, it's too crowded, there's too many tourists or something. It had a flavor, it definitely had a character, and it was known all over the world. So
Yeah.
thanks for sharing that, Lynda. And again, I think that closing statement about the Hawaiians as well, like, are they going to have a say? Because when we talked prior to the event, and we talked about, is this about climate change? I said, well, you know, the colonialism and the things that changed the environment here did have a lot of play into how this storm affected that side of the island. So I want to say, as a, you know, photography, unlike videography, is about those moments. And in reading Krishnamurti, he talks about the flame of attention and where do we put our attention. But in that day-to-day life, like I think several of you mentioned, the people you see every day, and it's not like a tourist photo. You're taking photos of real people in a real place that bring character to our community, that make the fabric of our community. So it really was wonderful to have you explain some of the photos. It was really more wonderful to have the people you had share tonight. It really brought to life who some of those people in the community are, what resonates with them. So I really appreciate your coming tonight, Arifin, and sharing in this way. So mahalo nui. Let's give a round of applause.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much, Kat, and thank you to Kirk and to Kevin and to Ariana and to Lynda for having come up and spoken, and to all of you for being here and giving your attention to this. And may Lahaina and Maui find its motion. May it get its motion back again, as an elder said to a Hawaiian elder said to me the other day. May it do that. And how do we heal and get our motion back so that we can then be all one again? So, thank you so much. Aloha nui loa.
Thank you.